Go ahead then, please. You ready?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to associate myself with all of the comments made about thanking the staff. I have a few questions. You'll be pleased to know that throughout the meeting, a few of them have been crossed off, so I won't be asking as many as I had planned to. There are less of them. And fundamentally, we're dealing with a situation here that affects homelessness. And homelessness comes in many forms, with everybody who, the legal definition, sofa surfers, those who have had to move back in with temporarily with parents or friends or whomever. At the extreme end of the scale, we have those who are living rough on our street, and they are perhaps to be considered some of the most vulnerable in our society. In a full council meeting of BCBC, I asked a question of the Cabinet in relation to how we report those who sleep rough and what the legal definition of sleeping rough was. And if possible, Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring to your attention a Welsh Government report which details those sleeping rough as of the 31st of August 2022, which details Newport, Cardiff, Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion and Denbighshire as being the local authorities reporting the highest numbers of individuals sleeping rough. All other local authorities, of which by exemption Bridgend County Borough Council is one, reported 10 or fewer individuals sleeping rough at that time.
Okay.
I personally know of one encampment within the ward I serve that had 8 people sleeping rough. So I would like some form of assurances that in order for us to properly consider this seismic situation that we have here, our current mayor has called it a concern. Many councillors have said it's a worrying report. We are still underreporting very large aspects of the problem here. And I would like to know from this cabinet and or our leader. I actually wrote an email on the 27th of October of this year to the cabinet member and the leader and the chief executive, copying in the report from Welsh Government. So I would like to know when we are going to start reporting the number of people sleeping rough properly, because it is a major problem and it is integral for us as councillors to understand that problem so that we can make proper actions when we're considering these reports.
Okay, so the question is, when are we going to start reporting correctly the amount of homeless people sleeping rough on the streets in Bridgend County? Is that the question?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Legally, we are compliant to Welsh Government requirements of an indication. However, these indications are drastically below what I know to be true.
Okay, Martin, you read the accusation. Can you answer it, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bletzer, for the question. In terms of, we're not under-reporting, Councillor Bletzer, so I think you alluded to Welsh Government. We report in line with Welsh Government guidelines. So this is a point in time on a specific day that the Welsh Government asks us to count. We don't actually do the count. Our third sector partner provides that count. They who run the 365-day service to support what we deem rough sleepers as in out in the open. So, it's a very transient community from that basis. So today you could count and there's 4 on that specific day on that month or that week. And then the next week it could be 8, but we only record as and when the specific days that the Welsh Government requests us to, as per our other authorities. But we are well aware of all our sort of rough sleeping community, if you want to term it as a phrase, across the borough via our reset team, which is our offer of support 365 days. But we've got to be cognizant of the fact that a number of it's a choice to take on support and where we offer accommodation and facilities, and that's what that outreach team is about working with and gaining the support and empowering those people to make that choice. So it's a difficult situation. I can't force people into accommodation, whether it's temporary or not, as a person or as an organisation, but I can make the offer and they need to choose. So in terms of our reporting, we report if it was on that day there was 10 out and we would be reporting the number on that day. It's just that's the mechanism the Welsh Government has use. All authorities doing that, and that's where it is. And so you will get differentials either side of that point in day. It doesn't mean we're less active in terms of trying to mitigate or reduce those numbers. So that's all I can say, and that's a response we went back with council. The original council report, Councillor Brett, so as you saw, the response from the leader was there was an actual error in the report that we put our hands up. It was an administrative error. It wasn't us trying to underplay. I think we put 4 and it should have been 8 at that point in time. So it's just purely an administrative. There's nothing that we're trying to put under the covers or cloak it, open and transparent. I don't want anyone rough sleeping across the county of Bridgend or anywhere else in terms of authorities. But it is a challenging situation dealing with the specific cohort of users. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Bledsoe.
Councillor Bledsoe, I got Ryan Jones, one of your colleagues, Martin, I believe, isn't it? He's got his hand up.
Yeah, right. Ryan is responsible for commissioning the team that supports those sort of rough sleepers and resolving that data piece.
I'm going to bring Ryan in now, please, Councillor Bledsoe. Go ahead, Ryan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to build upon what Martin said, really. I mean, Martin's referenced that we commission a rough sleepers intervention team, which is delivered by the Wallich, and as he touched on, that team goes out 365 days a year, both to identify and support rough sleepers. But also in addition to that, since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we've held a multi-agency meeting called a homeless cell, which was initially directed by Welsh Government, but we've kind of made the decision to continue that. So it's not actually just the rough sleepers intervention team, although the number is kind of led by those numbers we report are also kind of verified by multi-agency partners, including South Wales Police, probation, the health board. Through a health outreach team we commissioned to specifically support rough sleepers and those in temporary accommodation, and also our housing solutions team. So I feel we've got quite strong verification processes in terms of identifying and being able to support rough sleepers at any one time. I do think probably the issue with the report Councillor Bless was referring to is that is at any one time, as Martin referred to. Is it's not trying to say the amount of rough sleepers over a period of time, just at any one time.
Okay. Councillor Bledsoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both the officers. And I'm not saying that we're doing anything wrong in our reporting mechanism. We are doing what we are required to do. And just for clarity, and I know Martin made reference to the acceptance of a clerical error. I totally take that on board. I'm actually talking about a different report. This is the report of the 31st of August, which states that 10 people were sleeping rough. And as a ward councillor for Bridgend Central, I have a referral submitted stating there's an encampment of 8 people in one location on that day. And that's my concern is that, and look, I totally fully take on board your absolutely 100% accurate statement that we can offer help, and some people may choose not to accept it. My point isn't around that; it's around the reporting element.
Okay.
And that's my concern.
Steve, we can go back and forth, I think, on this one for indefinitely, I think, tonight, can we? So I'm going to move it on now. Have we got a second question, Steve? We did answer the question, didn't he, initially, in fairness to them?
Not a problem. And I only have 2 more questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I may need, I don't know if Kelly is still on the call in relation to being the monitoring officer, because I know that Councillor Granville did bring up the planning side of things. I do have a question in relation to historical and future planning around this issue. In that I would like this committee to receive a report from the authority or from development control for any occasions over a set period of time that can be agreed historically, where social housing percentages on developments have been reduced in return for increased Section 106 money. And then moving forward, and now that we have adopted our LDP, how we ensure that percentages of social housing is adhered to or increased on in order to build our way out of the current report and the situation.
Well, that'll have to be a recommendation, Councillor Bledsoe, I think is fair. There's no need to answer that now. That can be put down in a minute. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Okay. If that can be a recommendation, we can agree. If we can agree. Sorry.
So go on.
If we are able to agree a period of time that we can look back on, because we have found ourselves in a position, we have to understand how we found ourselves in a position and how do we build our way out of this situation. Yeah, so if we can look back as a recommendation, if we can look back on any
we can talk about that in the recommendations at the end, I
That's
suppose,
fine.
can't we? Is that okay?
If
Yeah.
you're happy with that, Mr. Chair, I'm totally happy with
Okay.
that.
Well, yeah.
And
Further final question, then, please, and we'll.
of course, and
Yeah.
finally, Mr. Chair, in relation to our working relationships with our RSLs in the area, I have a very positive working relationship with all of those who serve the areas that I'm elected to represent, and I do thank them for the open dialogue that we have. How do we work together better as a local authority and yourself as an RSL in relation to, and I would like to bring this up in this committee if possible, as a social landlord, the RSLs are responsible for the land in which they have community asset transferred over. Where there is fly tipping on those areas, we require the RSLs to clear the waste and dispose of the waste with commercial contractors at a commercial rate which comes out of the RSL's budgets. And fundamentally, it's penalising those that are living in social housing areas at this moment. So that's a matter I would like to see addressed personally, and I would like to know from the social housing landlords whether that would help you to get us out of this problem.
I'm not sure that's a question for this meeting, Steve. To be honest, no, you've got a lot of people on the committee have got experience with social housing. Now I got a lot of experience with waste. I've been enforcement officer for 7 years. Now, unfortunately, land dumped, waste fly tipped on land. Whoever owns that land ultimately becomes responsible. That's just a fact of life. We can't, if you're proposing that we somehow help the RSLs to dispose of this waste more cheaply, that's I think what you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
Well, all I'm saying, Mr. Chair, is that we have waste provisions. These RSLs are having to pay commercial rates to commercial providers. Are we able to work more productively to help the RSLs? And if you don't feel that's right for here, that's fine.
No, I feel that's. I said time isn't no best friend this evening. I think that's a question for another day. I think, Councillor Betts, so to be fair. Okay, I'm going to move it on.
I respect that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you very much. Councillor Jonathan Pratt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is the provision of emergency housing following incidents such as natural disaster, flooding, either domestic or natural, or domestic fire. What is the strategy and policy of this council on how quickly you can get people who are victims to these types of scenarios, who then immediately classified as homeless, into accommodation? So that would what would be the policy and strategy as is now. As hinted at in 4.8, I believe, that the new guidance from the Welsh Government that will deem hotels unsuitable accommodation. What work is the local authority doing for social tenants, private tenants whose landlords don't have sufficient insurances to provide emergency housing, and private homeowners who neither have sufficient insurances to provide themselves through their insurance policy emergency housing? So the default is to move to the local authority. So what strategies and policies do we have now, and what will be the impact once the Welsh Government are to determine that hotel accommodation is not suitable? Thank you.
Who's going to take that one, please? Martin?
Just clarification, really, Chair, from Councillor Pratt. Are we talking individuals, or are we talking sort of on a larger scale of sort of flooding, as an example, as you provide a need for emergency accommodation?
Yeah, it can be both. I mean, it all depends where. I mean, obviously, flooding is a big one because it affects a very large area. Obviously, in relation to domestic fires, if you're looking at a flat accommodation, I mean, that one accommodation area could end up being obviously in having that fire itself, which cannot impact the surrounding houses. So it is either families, so groups of families, or individuals, to sort of like what is it that this council does when these sort of things happen, either be that an individual household or in worst case scenario streets such as we'd have in flooding?
So in terms of response to Councillor Pratt's question, thank you for the question. I guess, we'll take it on an individual basis. So if there was an individual household that was affected by any of those circumstances, we would deal with it as a homelessness presentation, emergency 24/7. If it was on a larger scale, then that we would invoke our emergency disaster recovery plans in terms of the authority, where we could facilitate short-term accommodation within, say, the life centre in Bridgend. So we've got plans in place to support if there was a large scale sort of iteration, that we can deal with that. So but that's outside of, from my housing perspective, that's more of the emergency planning, etc., which we will maintain that continuity. But on individual basis, my recommendation, if anyone is fraught on an issue, we work with the multi-sectors, whether it's fire, police, etc., and we'll deal with presentation from a homelessness perspective, which is, we've got an offer 24/7 in terms of that presentation line, Councillor Pratt. So I hope that sort of covers your question in terms of from an individual and to a larger scale iteration. We've got plans in place from a council perspective to deal with that.
Yeah, thank you. So just if I can move to the Welsh Government's possible recommendation that that hotel accommodation would be unsuitable. Is this local authority concerned that this may have an impact on those strategies, or will the status quo be maintained?
I think it's a decision matrix on a larger scale issue. If we had to facilitate, say, who's talked about a street that's affected from that perspective, and we had to facilitate in a hotel accommodation, we would do that. It's natural as we invoke our emergency aspects. But I think from Welsh Government's perspective, hotel accommodation is not fit for purpose for that long-term tenancy sort of accommodation requirement. So, from us, we are working together with our partners, ourselves, etc., looking at those transitional funds opportunities plus the SSG to not use hotels. That was ultimately, that's our position statement. Unfortunately, due to the pressure we're in with 215 households that we currently in temporary accommodation, some of them are in hotels, and then we've got a challenge with the Ukrainian issue, where as we discussed earlier with Councillor Amanda Williams, in terms of the potential breakdowns. So we've got a short-term requirement. If we have to dispose of that and use it that way, then yes, albeit it's not ideal, with a longer-term process, Councillor Pratt, to mitigate the use of hotels going forward as a means of temporary accommodation.
Thank you for that. I'm satisfied with that answer. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Pratt. Thank you very much. Next, we have Councillor Ross Pennell-Thomas, please.
Many thanks, Chair. I believe I'm your last contributor, so I think we're almost at the end of the meeting. Fingers crossed. Can I just first of all share the echo and share the sentiments of fellow colleagues in thanking Martin, Ryan, Joanne and Lynn and the wider team for their work. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I know you've always come up trumps with any issues that I've had in terms of protecting the most vulnerable in my local community. Chair, I'd like to share a scenario with our social landlord colleagues, and it's a scenario particularly pertinent north of the M4, where I would describe the topography of some of our social housing estates as inhospitable. I think that's the best word I can find. You'll know it, Chair, from Cairo Park. I know it from my Stake Park. And just a scenario for you. So I might be walking along a road called Bryn Llywach, and I'm called by Mrs. Jones, who's at the top of her steps. I walk up the 20 steps. I feel like I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Mrs. Jones says to me, "Ross, I love my Stake Park. It's a wonderful community. My daughter lives in the next street over. My grandson lives 3 streets over. But I want to live in a bungalow. I want to live in a smaller house. I want to live on the flat." Now, long-standing research tells us that the best communities, the most cohesive communities, the best communities, the safest communities, the most sustainable communities are those where they are made up from a wide range of demographics. So it's about maintaining demographics across the community so that we reach the widest population. So I wondered what we are doing with our social landlords in particular to ensure that we are maintaining sustainability of our communities so that older people can maintain their roots in their communities and in particular are enabled to move out of properties that are inhospitable or inaccessible for whatever reason, and are able to maintain their independence in the local community by way of 1 or 2 bedroom properties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Or properties suitable to their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin, you going to take that one?
I think, Chair, I think it was pointed to the RSLs, but I totally endorse what Councillor Thomas said in terms of living in your community, and that if you look at the report in terms of housing need, it's well weighted for that single bed accommodation unit. So I don't know whether some of the RSLs want to come in and sort of feedback from that perspective.
Anybody would like to speak? Emma. Just Emma Guest, it says here. Emma, please.
Hello. Hello, I've appeared in the bottom corner of my screen. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, we can see you fine, Emma.
Yes, so there's the kind of like always the initial point is how can we help people stay happy and healthy in their homes? So that goes back to the sort of like DFGs and adaptations. And as a RSL, which I know many other RSLs do, we also support sort of third sector agencies like Care and Repair that can help that happen. We have the stock that we have in the area. Now we can always look to develop new accommodation. We try to look at where we can to make things like flats with ground floor flats accessible, or as accessible as possible within the area. Where we can, we do build sort of like smaller accommodation, as Martin rightly said, sort of like 1-bed flats are sort of supported quite a lot through the housing need. The social housing grant is based on the housing need for the area. So if there are 1-bed flats, that gets supported in partnership between us and the local authority to build them. And the sort of like ground floor flats tend to be more accessible. Bungalows can be expensive to develop, and they're not always there's not always the sort of like land to make the sort of like developments feasible going forward. But certainly we always look to try and create mixed communities and where possible keep people in their homes.
Emma, I missed what organisation you.
Oh, sorry, I'm from Valleys to Coast. So that was my fault. I thought I came up on my little tag.
Just to make sure that we be clear. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I haven't got any other RSLs showing on the screen here. So, are you happy with that, Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, it's obviously Mystic Park is primarily, well, I say primarily, it's entirely a Valleys to Coast area anyway, so it's probably particularly pointed at Valleys to Coast in particular. But you'll be aware of it, Chair, in your own community as well, many of us, just in terms of keeping people at home as long as possible in their communities.
I will ask Emma a question while she's on then.
Okay.
Emma, as Councillor Thomas says, I'm a Cairo member. We got Blind Cairo Estate up here. There was a lot of houses knocked down on Blind Cairo Estate. Some of them weren't particularly in bad condition. The flats were knocked down many years ago. I don't know what was the matter with them. But they're not it doesn't look like you're intended to build anywhere in Cairo. There's a school just been knocked down just outside the estate there, which has been knocked down 10-15 years. Nobody's built on it. So is there any plans from V2C, let's cut to the chase, to build in the Cairo ward?
And wherever we've got land, and it's part of the housing need and part of where BCBC have got need for accommodation, we will always look to use that to kind of increase our supply if we can. I haven't got our development programme in front of me at the moment, so I couldn't give you any definite, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you and our our Director of Assets and Growth to have a conversation around our pipeline. But where there is land, and there is the supporting SHG grant, we can always look at developing. Schools are usually owned by the local authority, and again, I think that is something that we've all sort of spoken about kind of like land supply, and us all working together to ensure that land is made available for social housing development to meet the needs of this, what people are rightly putting as a housing crisis.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. So just bring that to your attention anyway, that there's plenty of land, V2C land up there, which never gets, looked at, to be honest. Thank you. Okay, I have Councillor Alex Williams next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My contribution is not quite as entertaining as Councillor Pennell Thomas's, I'm afraid.
Yes.
And under the Rent in Homes Wales Act, social housing properties have to be fit for human habitation. So my question is, will this increase the void times as the houses now need to meet a specified quality criteria? And my understanding is that any rental houses need to meet a higher standard, have carbon monoxide sensors, for example, and wired in smoke alarms. So I'd be interested in hearing the response to that. Thanks.
Who's that directed to, Alex? Sorry.
Someone who can answer the question, Chair.
Okay. Would anybody like to answer that question? Joanne, Emma, your hand is still up. I take that's a legacy hand, is it, from last time? I'm going to call in Joanna anyway. Go, Joanna, go ahead.
And Emma may want to come in. Yeah, no, so Councillor Williams, you're right in terms of the new Renting Homes Wales Act coming in and the increase in standards in terms of what that, we're doing an assessment in terms of what that means, but we would not want to see it in terms of impacting our void. Some of the ones you talked about in terms of wired smoke alarms, the carbon monoxide, those are things that Valleys to Coast already are ahead of the curve, ensuring majority of our homes have got wired smoke alarms in and have got fitted in terms of we're doing the assessment of identifying with our assets in terms of carbon monoxide. There's about 13 different in terms of the fitness of human habitation requirements. So we are, going through what do those standards mean and bring about. So there's, big changes that will be coming in December around that. But, we are driving as an organisation to not even on our current standards of improving those void times.
Thank you, Joanne. I did see another hand up, but it disappeared. There's no more. Shane Hembro, that was the hand I saw. Shane, please. Is it Shane? Is it? Yes.
It is, Councillor. Yes, it is. And sorry, I'm having trouble with the buttons. And I think to some extent, Joanne has said the same thing. So for Wales and West, in respect of our stock, whilst the Renting Homes Act does bring a higher standard for a lot of rental stock, I think along with Valleys to Coast and the rest of us that we already meet those higher standards. So all of our homes would have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. They would meet all elements of the fitness standard. So it would only be by exception that you happen to come across a property where there were some category 1 defects or something, and you would do that as part of your normal empty property works. And I don't think any of us would see that that would create a delay.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Very concise. You happy with that, Councillor Williams?
Yes, thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the only two hands I got now are two RSLs, I believe, maybe legacy hands. Shane, your hand is still up. Joanne, you didn't want to come back in, no?
No, so it's legacy.
Okay, there's no further hands up. Let me just double check that. I can't see any hands up now, so I'm going to hang on. Councillor Philip Jenkins, is your hand up? It's got on and off the last 5 minutes here.
Yes, sorry about that, Chair. Yeah,
no, right. Okay.
I just wonder, can I claim white finger? You know what I mean? But
stop pressing the button. I said, be my advice, Councillor Jenkins.
Well, maybe right there. Yeah. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for this comprehensive report. Also, my fellow colleagues here and councillors for some interesting remarks, and the officers again for their answer. So whilst it's all been based mainly around obviously the homelessness, etc., and future development and housing, I've had a concern, and firstly, can I say I'm very grateful to Joanne from Valleys to Coast and a colleague for giving up a valuable time and meeting with Councillor Martin Hughes and myself last week, which was very interesting and encouraging. But I feel I have to raise an issue between the Bridgend County Borough and V2C, because all things that we are encompassed in at the moment relies on funding, etc. And what I was getting concerned about is the lack or the big backlog of repairs and maintenance that is now building up and has built up, mainly I would imagine through COVID, you know, and being able to access these properties and various things like that. But the future relies on not only the revenue that comes in from our housing associations, but the legacy was over 20 years ago, the BCBC had to give away this housing stock because they faced the crisis with legislation and maintenance and repairs that it was basically based on financially. And that created a new housing association, which is V2C. Okay. I think for a number of years, V2C supported their transfer with, I think Joa called it a dowry or finances to help them along during the way and keep them established, you know. But basically what I'm getting at is, although we can build new, there's still old housing stock out there that, and as it gets older, will need new repairs. It's general maintenance, and that has to be addressed still for the well-being of particularly the older people that are living and have lived in these properties for 40 years or more. So, you know, I need to know slightly a bit better where we're going and how Bridgend can perhaps ring-fenced or target by support to help with the backlog of repairs and the maintenance ongoing on these properties, so that we don't arrive at a situation where we just build new ones and we have to either tear down, and you know and I know at the moment, the sector out there, the legal sector, as giving tenants more rights, etc. So you can imagine if 1/10 of all the complainants to Valleys to Coast were to get themselves together and take legal action in so much as force somebody to do the repairs and push the bill back onto Valleys to Coast, it'd have a massive impact. So I know I'm digressing. So
yeah, you are digressing a little bit. I'm gonna bring Joanne in out as
just really I felt I need to address it. Although the lady gave us confidence, I need to address that future of the older housing stock.
Joanne to answer that particular point of what they're going to do with the backlog of repairs, I believe, especially in older houses, I believe is what the question was, Joanne.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And yeah, we met with myself and the Corporate Director of Development and Assets, met with Councillor Jenkins last week. And I think there was two things we got to ascertain here. There were the routine repairs, because what we're saying, we are making headways and wins because there had been a backlog as a result of COVID. And what we talk about, the planned work that needs, so like replacements of bathrooms, kitchens, roofs, those types of things. And we recognise, yes, it is a backlog around the planned maintenance, because there is a pot of money that we have as a RSL, and we need to prioritise based on the stock condition surveys that we get back for each of our properties. And Valleys to Coast next year is 20 years, so all the work of the kitchens and the bathrooms that was done as part of the initial transfer is 20 years. That is coming up due for replacement. We're going to have a cycle. As some of the councillors will know, and members of the Senedd, is the impact that Valleys to Coast only had a dowry for the first 5 years to meet those tenant promises, and that subsequent stock transfer organisations have had ongoing dowry for 20 to 30 years, and the impact of that lost revenue. Bridgend is the only local authority area that doesn't have an MRA or have a dowry given to the appropriate stock transfer organisation. So there has been that loss of investment, and I think it is noticeable in Bridgend when you look to compare to some of the LSBTs. But as we are reassured with Councillor Jenkins that we are addressing this, we have been getting the support of the local members of the Senedd for us to address this, to take this forward. To see whether we can put Valleys to Coast on an equity funding regime going forward. But that doesn't stop us being kind of ambitious. I gave reassurance to Councillor Jenkins that we do have a programme. All our properties have a stock condition survey. We use that to prioritise. We have a programme this financial period, because what is needing replacing in the homes are the roofs. We need to ensure that homes are watertight, and so important in terms of energy efficiency. We know that customers will be wanting to say kitchens and bathrooms, but the priority must be in terms of making sure that the homes are watertight, they're safe, and that we are managing in terms of the energy efficiency of those homes. So it's one of the ones we're saying we are, we recognise where we are. We've got to make some priorities, but we are looking to see where we can, how can we just leverage in additional money so that we can move quicker than we would like around those planned major work investments. We do know, and I have spoken in front of councillors previously in terms of where we've been on our repairs, but we are making improvements. Our complaints have reduced. Our backlog around routine repairs have reduced, so we are making headways in catching up on those more general repairs. But I just want to make that difference between the two different parts of the works that we are taking forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Joanne. Councillor Jenkins, I'm conscious of time, it's 6:20. I'm going to bring this to a close now, I think, because there's no more hands up.
Could I just ask him, perhaps of the officers, that and you heard from the chief executive that only for the 5 years that kind of an agreement ended, and like other associations, they've got ongoing ones. Could our officer of Paul Carris, the chief financial officer, put in place or reinstate something in the next financial programs to assist our housing stock for it?
Joanne, go on. I'll bring you in quickly, Joanne, and I can bring Rhys Good in there. Rhys is going to be the last comment on this then, by the way, guys. Joanne, please.
Only just very quick, just to clarify, the funding comes from Welsh Government, not the local authority, and I just want to support the local authority is supporting us. So we have been working with the councillors who are the members of the Senedd, and with officers in BCBC to look at this, to take it forward. So I just want to clarify, we're having that political support, but the funding comes from Welsh Government, not from the local authority.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification, Joanne. Yeah. Rhys, you got the last word on this now, right? So make it a good one.
Yeah, thanks. Just to reiterate, as Joe just mentioned, we are, of course, working with V2C on this, as well as with the Senedd members, to look at whether there is any thing we can do to improve the situation that we find ourselves in. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Rhys. And on that note, I'm going to thank the invitees for attending today, and the officers. Now we're going to be going on to item 4 shortly, which is a summary of the points and the forward work programme. Well, the summary of the points, I suppose the COSC members can stay around for, but I think the forward work programme, they may want to leave. But this time I'd like to say thank you to the officers and to the invitees who can now either stay or let's go leave the meeting, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you for all attending. Thank you very much. Do you see, are they, do you see them, are they all left, or?
Yes, I think so, Chair.
I got Jessica McKellen, that's the organiser, no? Laura Griffiths. Would
you like me to summarise key points for the committee, Chair?
Yeah, this is this for the record. We're going on to item 4 now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, item 4. Sorry, Chair.
Conclusion and recommendations.
So just to summarise for the committee, there was a discussion from Councillor Amanda Williams's question regarding how much input discussion RSLs have with house building companies regarding what types and how many of each type of accommodation are being built, as well as when they become available as compared to other accommodation on a particular site. So is there a recommendation to refer to planning for response as to what is being done?
I believe that was the proposal, I believe, wasn't it, in the meeting? Is everybody happy with that? Anybody object to that? Councillor Simon Griffiths, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a planning issue as such. I mean, in the pre-consultation phase of most developments, then it's an open public consultation, which is open to groups as well. And so that actually should be done by the developer themselves and isn't really a matter for development control.
Well, I must say I'm not an expert in this field, so I wouldn't know if that's right or wrong, to be honest.
So developer control can't dictate what which groups submit information into a pre-application submission, but I think a pre-application consultation. But I think there should be a general requirement on any major development to include conversations with RSLs. I don't think it's much we can do from a developer control perspective.
Is there a recommendation there? Some other place we can place a recommendation then, Simon, you saying or not? What influence could we have over that? You know,
I think what I'd recommend is write to Jonathan Parsons as head of development control and ask his advice on how we can ensure better consultation.
Okay, see what he comes back with. Okay. Sounds okay, Lucy? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that. Thank you, Chair. So then Councillor Martin Jones asked about ideas for short and medium term to tackle the housing crisis. He said he would be looking for allocation and dealing with the voids to be high on the agenda and looked at regularly with an action plan to be a partnership plan and support packages in place for families caught up in homelessness. It was suggested that there was a possible piece of work on how to bring forward more opportunities. So did the committee wish to make a recommendation on that point?
Any thoughts? Don't see any hands up. Councillor Jones, do you want to come in quick, make a comment? Oh, they're shy tonight on commenting, you see? Yeah, put it through as a recommendation then if there's nobody gonna comment. Hang on, do I hear somebody?
Mr. Chair, I believe the chair has left. I don't think he's still here.
Left, sorry?
I think the mayor has left the meeting.
The mayor's left. Oh yes, of course. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you are right. Yeah, he left. He's one of the ones that left. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Bledsoe. Thank you.
Can Lucy please repeat what Councillor Jones called for? Because I think we may need to look at the recommendation in his absence if he's not here, mightn't we?
Yeah. That's what he's asking for. Yeah.
So I'll just repeat. So Councillor Martin Jones asked about ideas for short and medium term to tackle the housing crisis. He said he would be looking for allocation and dealing with the voids to be high on the agenda and looked at regularly with an action plan to be a partnership plan with cohesion support packages in place for families caught up in homelessness. So it was suggested that there could possibly be a piece of work on how to bring forward more opportunities.
Who would do that work? Who was he referring to there?
I think he was making reference to the RSLs, wasn't he?
Are we going to ask the RSLs to provide this information? Is that what he's saying?
Yes, it was referenced to the RSLs. It was to the executives.
So you talking about writing to each RSL, or is he? What was he suggesting we do? I'm slightly confused with this.
I believe Councillor Martin Jones's point was he was looking for the ideas to come from the RSLs, and I think he had one response in the meeting, but whether he was actually looking for responses as to what ideas are on the table to tackle, short and medium term ideas that they're looking at to tackle the housing crisis.
Yeah, he had one response. I think it was from Harvard Housing, was it? I think the chap, wasn't he? The one that spoke.
He had one. He definitely had one response in the meeting, Chair. But it's whether he's looking for responses from the remainder.
Well, can we make a recommendation? We write to them and ask them what is that the recommendation we can make? Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah, we can pose the question to the RSLs in writing, Chair, if that's be a recommendation.
That's what Martin seems to have wanted. So, you know, he's not here to speak for himself. So, okay.
Thank you, Chair. So, lastly, for the recommendations, Councillor Stephen Bletser requested a report from Development Control looking back on the matter of social housing, how to ensure percentage of social housing is adhered to or increased. I'm sorry, I didn't catch everything that was requested. So if the committee is minded to make the recommendation, and if he could please clarify all the aspects that you would like the report to cover.
Councillor Bledsoe, you're still on the call, obviously. So do you want to come in there?
Oh yes, I'm here with you for the duration, Chair.
Yes,
it was for this committee to receive some reports on how many times historically percentages of social housing had been diminished on developments in return for Section 106 money, because that's obviously the situation that's led us to this position. And then moving forward, how do we ensure in some way that the agreed LDP's social housing percentages are maintained and not replaced by Section 106 money? So the one aspect is the report into what's brought us here, and then the other aspect would then be how we express a desire almost to ensure that we maintain our LDP.
I've got Laura Griffiths put a hand shot up there, so I'm going to bring you in now next. Laura, please.
Thank you, Chair, just to come in there because I think Kelly has left the meeting. So Councillor Bletsoe, you can certainly request previous social housing developments, but you're not going to be able to look at allocations moving forward because that's not within the remit of this committee, and that's very much a matter for Development Control Committee, and they will determine social housing. Obviously, that allocation will be dependent on planning need, on the basis of planning need. So you wouldn't be able to certainly look at allocations moving forward, but you can certainly request that information, you know, historic social housing developments, if that helps. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to bring Simon Griffiths in now before, and then bring Councillor Bledsoe back in. Simon, please.
Yeah, just a small point. Can we make sure whether we annotate that just as a pure information request? I think it's too early at this point to make the conclusion that this is a cause of the situation that we're in. So, yeah. So if it can be just a pure information request, I think that it would be fine.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Councillor Bledsoe, are you happy with the historical version of the recommendation?
Fully, I fully take on board what Laura has said. I'm trying to learn in these committees that we don't just look back, we look forward. But if we don't have the remit to, then we can't. And I fully agree with Councillor Griffiths. I may need to have moderated the tone of my question or the words of my question. I can't predetermine that's the problem, and I would certainly recommend it. Receive it in information purposes and accept it on its own merits. So thank you to Councillor Griffiths for that as well.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So you see,
those were the recommendations, Chair, and then there was also some requests for information. How many veteran ex-service personnel have presented as homeless and requiring accommodation?
Yeah, that was one.
There was also a question around the number of refugees in the borough. I think it was answered around 200, but did the committee want any more data or information?
I asked that question, but I was just trying to draw it out to the officer at the time. I don't know if we needed to have if the committee's minded to, you know, get that accurate information. Well, fine, you know, I don't know where to get, not quite sure where it gets us, but we know it's around the 200 mark, which is still a lot of people. So the committee want to pursue that, or are they happy to go what the officer said in the meeting? Martin Hughes, please.
Yeah, I think the answer was addressed in the meeting, Chair, so I wouldn't
okay.
Put that
there we are,
forward.
Lucy. We leave that one go then if that's what the committee's minded.
Okay, and then lastly,
sorry, what about the servicemen one, the veterans? Did we agree to? That wasn't
so
answered.
That one was how many veterans or and ex-service personnel are presented as homeless and requiring
Martin wasn't very sure.
accommodation.
Martin wasn't very sure the answer to that, was he? I don't think from memory. So that might be one we can put through to ask, because there is, as somebody said in the meeting, you know, a lot of the rough sleepers can be from the ex-military, can't they? With the issues they've had from serving, basically, isn't it? That's countrywide rather than just Bridgend there, but maybe value in that. If that's okay, the committee happy with that?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. Okay.
And then lastly then, sorry, Chair.
No, go on.
And lastly then, Councillor Tim Thomas asked about delays in DFGs causing delays in accommodation. The committee had a response from officers, but officers suggested posing questions to RSLs regarding the property adaptation grant. And do the committee wish to pose that question to any of the RSLs? But just to remind the committee that the DFGs are on the COSC forward work programme for December.
Right. Well, if it's on the COSC, I don't know. The COSC members are here, so they'll be discussing that now in December. So is there really point to Councillor Alex Williams, please? You first up.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Chair. I think as it's on the COSC forward work programme for December, there's probably no need to make a recommendation. But obviously, you're in the chair, and if SOC 3 want to offer a recommendation, that's fine as well. I'm
going to bring Martin Hughes in, but I minded similarly. But we'll see what Martin's got to say now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. The only thing is that with the PAGs, it's like a separate issue which is specific to RSLs. And I think that information would be quite useful, and it falls outside of the DFG issue, really. But it's good to have that information.
So what do you say, Martin? Sorry, you
I think we ought to seek the information about the physical access grants, PAGs, from the RSLs.
Right. Okay. Just that specific point, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody happy? Well, Stephen Bledsoe, you got your hand up?
Yeah, just to agree with yourself and Councillor Williams in relation to the question about DFGs. Councillor Thomas is actually the member of COSC in this demographic here, rather than SOC 3, so it may be better to go that route anyway. And I would also agree with Councillor Hughes then about his subsequent point about how we can better have that information more directly to us. So I would support both Councillor Alex Williams and Councillor Hughes. Sorry.
There seems to be a lot of agreement there, Lucy. So. So we go forward on the first point and not the second. I believe it was in a nutshell, was it?
Yeah, I've made a note of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was everything that I had taken down. If committee members have anything else to add.
Councillor Bledsoe, your hand is up. Is that legacy, or do you want to come in? All gone. So anybody else got anything that they feel needs to be asked or recommended? No, I'm not getting any hands going up, Lucy. So I think, yeah, there's no hands going up. So we can move on to the next. I've lost it now. Hang on a second. Where's it gone? Item 5, the forward work programme then, please. Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. So following on from members' consideration of the forward work programme at the previous meeting on the 26th of September, the forward work programme for this committee is attached as Appendix A. The SOC forward work programmes will be included in the next report to COSC with any updates from each SOC meeting included. The recommendations monitoring action sheet is attached as Appendix B to track responses to the committee's recommendations at the previous meetings. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 9 on page 17. The committee is recommended to consider and approve the forward work programme attached as Appendix A. For the committee to note, there is likely to be a special meeting in January to discuss the budget.
Okay. I'm looking for, oops, I almost logged at the meeting by mistake then. I'm looking for hands regarding the forward work programme. Anybody got any comments? No.
Happy to accept, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, everyone seems to be in agreement. What's on the list, Lucy? So we can move on from there. Yeah. Okay. I'll check one more time. There's no hands up. Okay. That's that agenda gone. SOSC 3. Right, item 6, urgent items. There are no urgent items of business in respect of which notice has been given in accordance with Part 4, Paragraph 4 of the Council Procedure Rules. If that's the case, I'm going to draw the meeting to a close and thank everybody for their attendance. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.